He, a cold and calculating millionaire, needed a fake fiancée to fulfill a wills clause or protect his empire. The contract was clear: marriage in name only, no emotions, no intimacy. But at a crucial gala, he sees her dancing with another man, radiating a light he never imagined existed. Suddenly, jealousy consumes him, revealing a love he never planned to feel. Prepare for a twist where a fake marriage becomes real, and a cold millionaire is confronted with an overwhelming passion he can no longer ignore, proving that the heart has its own rules. Watch this story to the end. You will be surprised. If you like love stories, romance, subscribe to this channel, leave your comment. We post videos like this every day. Continuing. Sweat trickled down Lily Smith's temples as she adjusted the fogged-up mirror in the small dance studio. The ceiling fan creaked in a mismatched rhythm, fighting the sweltering heat of the afternoon. At 28 years old, she had transformed that cramped space in downtown LA into a haven for community kids, where she taught classical ballet and contemporary dance with a passion that made up for the lack of resources. "Miss Lily, my mum said she can't afford lessons anymore," mumbled Emily, a 10-year-old girl with big, dreamy eyes. Lily's heart sank. Another family unable to afford even the symbolic fees she charged. She smiled, stroking the girl's hair. "Don't worry about it right now. Let's focus on the grand jeté you were practicing." When the last student left, Lily sat on the cool floor of the studio, surrounded by piles of overdue bills. The rent was 3 months behind, and the landlord had been clear: 2 more weeks or she would lose the space. Worse, her grandmother, Eleanor, needed heart surgery that cost an impossible amount for someone who survived by giving dance lessons for $20 an hour. She looked at the framed photo on the wall, her grandmother at 20, radiant on a stage at Lincoln Center when she was still a rising star in American ballet before life and poverty stole her dreams. Eleanor had sacrificed everything to raise Lily after her parents died in a car accident, and now it was the granddaughter's turn to repay her. Across town, in the penthouse of a skyscraper in downtown Manhattan, Dominic Pierce contemplated the city skyline through the panoramic windows of his office. At 39 years old, he had built an empire that stretched from real estate investments to cutting-edge technology, transforming himself into one of the richest men in America. His decisions moved millions. His phone calls decided the future of entire companies. "Mr. Pierce, your lawyer is here," announced his assistant Claudia through the intercom. Dr. Robert Hayes entered the office with the grave expression of someone carrying bad news. Dominic did not get up, continuing to observe the city while listening to the words that would change his life. "The clause is irrevocable, Dominic. Your grandfather was very specific. You must be married by your 40th birthday, or you will lose 60% of the company's shares to your cousins. They are already organizing, waiting for you to fail." Dominic finally turned around, his face a mask of calculated coldness. At 16 years old, he had learned that love was a weakness when he saw his father lose half of the family fortune in a disastrous divorce. At 25, he confirmed this lesson when his fiancée left him for a richer man. Since then, he had built impenetrable walls around his heart. "And how much time do we have?" 8 months. "But Dominic, it needs to be convincing. Your cousins will investigate every detail. The woman cannot appear greedy, and the relationship must have public credibility." 2 weeks later, fate wove its cruel web. Lily ran through the streets of downtown LA, desperate, holding the phone where the doctor's words echoed. Her grandmother had suffered another heart attack and needed surgery immediately. Blinded by tears, she didn't see the red light. Dominic's black Bentley braked sharply, the tires screeching on the asphalt wet from the sudden rain. Lily rolled over the hood, falling heavily on the sidewalk. When she opened her eyes, she found herself staring at the most handsome and cold face she had ever seen. Ice blue eyes, a defined jawline, impeccably styled dark hair. "Are you hurt?" His voice was deep, controlled, but there was genuine concern hidden in the subtext. Lily tried to get up, feeling a sharp pain in her left wrist. Her simple clothes, faded jeans and a cotton t-shirt, contrasted brutally with Dominic's Italian suit and the luxurious interior of the car. I need to get to the hospital, she whispered, more concerned about her grandmother than her own injury. Dominic studied this petite woman with wavy brown hair, a delicate face without makeup, and something about her intrigued him. There was no greed in her eyes when she looked at the expensive car, only genuine despair. "I'll take you," he decided, ignoring Claudia's protests about important appointments. At the hospital, as Lily rushed to her grandmother's room, Dominic watched her comfort the elderly woman with a tenderness he had forgotten existed. When the doctor explained the costs of the surgery, he saw Lily collapse silently, yet maintaining a brave smile to reassure Eleanor. Outside the room, Dominic made a decision that would change both their lives. He approached her with the precision of a predator who had identified his prey. "I have a proposition for you," he said, his voice low and calculated. "One that can solve your financial problems and mine as well." Lily stared at him, confused and vulnerable, without imagining that this chance encounter was about to transform them into protagonists of a farce that would become the most real of passions. Lily stared at Dominic for long seconds, trying to decipher the intentions behind those impenetrable blue eyes. The hospital corridor bustled with activity around them, but she felt as if they were in a bubble, isolated from the world. "What kind of proposition?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. Dominic slipped his hands into his suit pockets, assuming that imposing posture that intimidated CEOs in boardrooms. But something in her fragility made him choose his words with unusual care. "I need a fiancé. You need money. We can help each other?" Lily's world seemed to tilt. She blinked several times, convinced she had misheard. "A fiancé? Are you proposing?" "No," he replied with a coldness that made Lily recoil involuntarily. "I'm offering a contract. An engagement for 8 months, marriage on paper, convincing public appearances. In exchange, all of your grandmother's medical expenses will be paid, plus a substantial sum for you to start your life over." Nausea rose in Lily's throat. She leaned against the wall, feeling dizzy. "You don't even know my name, and you're offering me money to be your fake wife?" "Lily Smith," he said calmly. 28 years old, dance teacher, no family besides your grandmother, no significant debts other than the studio about to be evicted and the medical bills. No boyfriend for 2 years. Perfect for my purposes." Lily's blood ran cold. In just a few hours, he had investigated her entire life. "How did you?" "I have resources. And you have exactly the profile I need. Discreet, no social connections that could complicate things, and desperate enough to accept." The word desperate cut like a blade. Lily felt angry tears burn her eyes. "I'm poor, not a prostitute," she retorted, her voice trembling with indignation. For the first time, something flickered in Dominic's eyes. Surprise, maybe even regret. He took a step forward, but she recoiled. "That's not what I meant. It would be a clean business arrangement without other expectations of why me." Dominic hesitated. The truth was that something about her had touched him in an inexplicable way. The way she comforted her grandmother, how she showed no interest in his money even in despair, how her eyes shone with determination even in the face of adversity. But he couldn't admit that even to himself. "Because you won't create emotional complications," he lied. The doctor appeared in the hallway at that moment, interrupting the tension. Lily rushed to him, and the words she heard made her legs fail. The surgery needed to be done in 48 hours, or Eleanor would die. Dominic watched her collapse silently, admiring how she still managed to be strong for her grandmother when she entered the room to explain the situation. When Lily came out, her eyes were red but dry. "How much?" she asked, her voice a defeated whisper. 200,000 for the surgery and treatment, plus 300,000 for you, paid at the end of the contract. It was more money than she would see in her entire life. Lily closed her eyes, feeling like she was selling her soul to the devil dressed in Armani. "And what exactly do you expect from me?" "Public appearances, social events, convincing my family and the media that we are in love. Some photos, interviews if necessary. Nothing more. And after 8 months, amicable divorce. You disappear from my life with enough money to start over wherever you want. Lily studied this impossible man. He was handsome in a way that hurt to look directly at, powerful in a way that made her feel insignificant, and cold like a winter storm. Everything about him screamed danger. Why do you need a fake wife? A man like you, that's none of your business. He cut her off sharply, then softened his tone. Let's just say I have family obligations to fulfill. Lily took a deep breath. She thought of Eleanor languishing in that hospital bed, the children who would lose the studio, the dreams she had buried years ago. I need time to think. You have until tomorrow, Dominic said, handing her a card with only a phone number. Your grandmother's surgery will be scheduled as soon as you sign the contract. He walked away, then stopped and turned around. Just to be clear, I don't expect you to love me, and I certainly won't love you. This is just business. That night, Lily sat beside Eleanor's bed, holding her grandmother's frail hand. The elderly woman slept heavily under the effect of the sedatives, and Lily whispered in the silent room, "Grandma, I don't even know who I am anymore. You always taught me to have dignity, to never accept handouts. But what if this is the only way to save you?" Eleanor woke up for a moment, her eyes still lucid despite the medication. "My darling, sometimes we need to dance with wolves to protect those we love. Just don't let them devour your soul." The next morning, Lily called the number on the card with trembling hands. Dominic's deep voice answered on the second ring. "I accept," she said before she could change her mind. "But I have conditions." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm listening. I want to know the details of why you need this. And I want my grandmother never to know it's a lie. As far as she's concerned, we're going to have fallen in love for real." "Agreed. My office, 2 hours. Claudia will send you the address." When she hung up, Lily looked at herself in the hospital bathroom mirror. The woman staring back at her had the eyes of someone who was about to cross a line from which there would be no return. She had agreed to be the fake fiancée of a man who awakened in her a dangerous and inexplicable attraction. What she didn't know was that Dominic had spent the entire night awake, thinking about the sweet smile she offered her grandmother and the strength she demonstrated in the face of adversity. For the first time in years, his walls of ice had developed the first cracks. Dominic's office on the 30th floor of the office building in downtown Manhattan was a statement of power. Italian marble floors, minimalist furniture in shades of grey, and a stunning view of the city. Lily felt diminished in that environment, even more so wearing her only formal outfit, a simple black dress she had bought on clearance years ago. "Sit down." Dominic indicated a leather armchair in front of his desk, maintaining professional distance. He slid a thick contract in her direction, 20 pages of clauses in legal language that she could barely understand. "My lawyer reviewed every line. Basically, you will be presented as my fiancé in 3 days at my mother's birthday dinner. From there, we will have regular social events, charity galas, openings, business dinners." Lily flipped through the pages, feeling lost. "And about what we talked about yesterday. Why do you need this?" Dominic hesitated, his fingers drumming on the glass table. For the first time since they met, he seemed less controlled. "My grandfather left a testamentary clause. I need to be married by my 40th birthday, or I lose control of the company to my cousins. That seems archaic. My grandfather believed that single men didn't have enough responsibility to lead a family empire," he said with bitterness. "Ironic, considering that my parents had the most destructive marriage I've ever witnessed." It was the first crack in the armor of ice. Lily leaned forward, intrigued. "Are your cousins that bad?" Something dark passed through Dominic's eyes. "They would turn everything my grandfather built into a greed machine. They'd fire half the employees, sell off the less profitable divisions. I can't allow it." Lily realized there were layers to this man that he kept carefully hidden. Behind the calculating coldness, there was someone who cared about more than just profits. I need a few things before the dinner, Dominic continued, returning to his professional tone. Appropriate clothes, social etiquette lessons, a new look. Lily's blood rushed to her face. What's wrong with the way I look? Dominic studied her with a clinical eye, but something more flickered through them, a masculine appreciation that he tried to disguise. Nothing. But you'll need to appear compatible with my world. 2 hours later, Lily found herself in the most exclusive salon in Beverly Hills, being transformed by a team of professionals who cost more per day than she earned per month. When they finished, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. Brown hair cut into elegant layers, subtle makeup that enhanced her green eyes, impeccable nails. In the next boutique, the saleswoman treated her like royalty upon mentioning Dominic's name. Lily tried on dresses that cost a fortune, feeling like an actress preparing for a role she didn't fit. "This one is perfect," said the saleswoman, adjusting a navy blue silk dress that hugged her understated curves. Lily looked in the mirror and saw a stranger, elegant, sophisticated, but not herself. When she left the boutique with bags of expensive clothes, she found Dominic waiting in the car. He watched her approach, and something changed in his expression. She was beautiful, but she had lost that naturalness that had unconsciously attracted him. "Better?" she asked, detecting his hesitation. "Different," he replied diplomatically. During the drive to the apartment he had rented for her, a small but luxurious penthouse in downtown Manhattan, they remained silent. Lily watched the city pass by the window, feeling increasingly distant from herself. "Can I ask you something?" she said when they stopped in traffic. Dominic nodded. "Why have you never really married? A man like you." "A man like me doesn't believe in fairy tales," he replied dryly. "Have you ever been in love?" The question seemed to hit him like a punch. Dominic kept his eyes fixed on the street, but his hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Once, when I was 25, Lily realized she had touched a still sensitive wound." "What happened?" "She left me for someone richer," he said with a bitter laugh. "Apparently I wasn't rich enough yet. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a valuable lesson. Love is a luxury that men like me can't afford to have." Lily studied his tense profile. There was pain there, carefully buried under layers of cynicism. "Maybe she wasn't the right person. Or maybe the problem was me," he murmured, so low she almost didn't hear him. That night, alone in the sterile apartment that was now her temporary home, Lily called the hospital. Eleanor was recovering well from the surgery, but asked about the handsome man who had paid for everything. "He's special, Grandma," Lily lied, surprised to realize it wasn't a complete lie. "And do you like him?" Lily hesitated. The attraction was undeniable, but Dominic was like an iceberg. 90% of him remained submerged, dangerous, and unexplored. "It's complicated. The best loves always are, my darling." After hanging up, Lily went to the balcony. The view of the beach under the moonlight was stunning, but she felt lost. In 3 days, she would enter Dominic's world as his fake fiancée, and something told her that nothing would be as simple as they had planned. Across town, Dominic was in his office working late, trying to distract himself. But he kept thinking about the vulnerability in Lily's eyes when she asked about love, the way she had defended her appearance with wounded pride. He picked up the phone and almost dialed her number several times just to hear her voice, but he always hung up before the first ring. He couldn't allow himself to feel anything real for her. It was just a contract, but when he closed his eyes, the image that haunted him was the genuine smile she had given her grandmother in the hospital, a smile that no one had ever given him. In 3 days, he would introduce Lily as his fiancée to the world. What he didn't know was that some secrets are impossible to hide, especially from those who learn to read between the lines of the soul. Helena Pierce's birthday dinner was taking place at the family mansion in Bel Air, an imposing property with immaculate gardens and a view of the city. Lily observed the imposing facade from the car, her stomach churning with nervousness. Dominic seemed tense beside her, his fingers drumming on the steering wheel. "Do you remember our story?" he asked for the 3rd time. We met at the hospital after the accident. You insisted on taking me. It was love at first sight, she recited mechanically. Dominic, you're more nervous than I am. He glanced at her. Lily was stunning in the navy blue dress, but she had preserved something of her natural essence, a discreet earring that had belonged to her mother. Her hair loose in soft waves, instead of the severe bun the hairdresser had suggested. My family can be intimidating. Worse than you, she teased, eliciting a reluctant smile from him. It was the first time Lily had seen him smile for real, and the effect was devastating. For a moment he seemed years younger, almost vulnerable. The entrance into the mansion was a test of endurance. Helena Pierce was an elegant woman of 60, with perfectly arranged grey hair and eyes that seemed to see through people. Dominic's cousins, Ryan and Mark, greeted Lily with fake smiles and calculating glances. "So you're the young lady who conquered our Dominic," said Helena, studying Lily with surgical attention. "He's never introduced us to a girlfriend before." "Lily is special," Dominic replied, placing his hand protectively on her back. During dinner, Lily struggled to use the etiquette she had learned hastily. She talked about art, literature, and feigned interest in investments. But she perceived the suspicious looks from the cousins, Helena's subtle questions, testing her knowledge about Dominic's social world. "And where exactly did you two meet?" asked Ryan, cutting his salmon with surgical precision. "At the hospital," Lily replied, following the script. "How romantic," commented Mark sarcastically. "Dominic has always been a little peculiar in his relationships." The tension at the table was palpable. Dominic tensed beside Lily, and she realized there was history behind that comment. After dinner, while the adults were having after-dinner drinks in the living room, Lily escaped to the balcony, needing some fresh air. The illuminated garden was an oasis of tranquility, and she was finally able to breathe. "Running away." Dominic's voice startled her. He had loosened his tie and taken off his jacket, appearing more human under the moonlight. "Just processing," she admitted. "Your family is intense. They're testing you. They want to see if you're real or just another gold digger." "And what do you think they concluded?" Dominic approached, leaning against the railing beside her. Their fingers almost touched on the cold marble. "That you're too good for me," he said softly. Lily's heart leaped. There was something different in his voice, a raw honesty that completely disarmed her. "Dominic, can I ask you a personal question?" He interrupted her. She nodded, not trusting her own voice. "Why have you never married?" "A woman like you," Lily laughed bitterly, "a woman like me doesn't have time for relationships. Between taking care of my grandmother, teaching classes, trying to keep the studio running, and men don't stick around for long when they realize they aren't a priority. They were fools." The intensity in his voice made her look at him. Under the moonlight, Dominic's blue eyes gleamed with something she couldn't identify. "And you?" she dared to ask. "Besides that woman who left you?" "There was never anyone trustworthy," he replied, then hesitated. "Until now." The air between them crackled with electricity. Lily felt herself being drawn to him like a magnet, and she realized that Dominic was fighting against the same magnetic force. "This is dangerous," she whispered. "What is?" "The way you look at me, as if I were real." "You're the most real thing that's ever come into my life," he confessed, his voice hoarse. Before either of them could think better of it, he lowered his head and kissed her. It was a soft kiss at first, almost hesitant, but when Lily responded, twining her fingers in his hair, he deepened it with a desperate passion. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. "Shit," Dominic muttered, running his hands through his hair. "That wasn't supposed to happen." "I know," Lily agreed, but she couldn't regret it. "Dominic?" Helena's voice interrupted them. They pulled away quickly, trying to compose themselves. Helena appeared on the balcony, studying them with perceptive eyes. "Sorry to interrupt. Your cousins were looking for you." "Of course," Dominic replied, offering his arm to Lily. When they returned to the living room, Ryan and Mark watched them with renewed interest. Lily realized that something had changed. They no longer seemed skeptical about the relationship, but concerned about its authenticity. In the car during the ride back, the silence was deafening. Lily stared out the window, still tasting Dominic's lips while he drove with his hands tight on the steering wheel. "About what happened," he began. "It was just to keep up appearances," she interrupted him quickly. "Your mother saw us. We needed to look convincing." "Right," he agreed, but there was disappointment in his voice. "Appearances." When they stopped in front of her building, Lily hesitated before getting out of the car. "Dominic, your cousins. They're going to investigate, aren't they?" He nodded grimly. "Ryan already hired a private investigator. I got the information this morning." Lily's blood ran cold. "And if they find out about the contract, then I'll lose everything. And you'll become a target." The reality of the situation hit them like a cold wave. The kiss on the balcony had not been just a moment of weakness. It had been observed, analyzed, and now it put them in real danger. "What do we do?" Dominic looked at her with an expression that mixed determination and something deeper. "We make our lies so convincing that even we won't be able to distinguish what's real." But as Lily went up to her apartment, both knew they had already crossed a dangerous line. What had begun as a business arrangement had turned into something that no contract could control. Across town, Ryan Pierce dialed a number on his cell phone. "I want you to investigate everything about Lily Smith, every detail of her life, every bank account, every relationship. There's something wrong with this story, and I'm going to find out what it is." The game had changed, and the stakes had never been higher. But 3 weeks after the dinner at Helena's house, Lily woke up to her phone buzzing insistently. Still sleepy, she answered without looking at who was calling. "Hello, have you seen the papers?" Dominic's tense voice woke her up completely. Lily ran to the door, where she found 3 different newspapers. Her picture was on the cover of all of them. The mystery of Dominic Pierce's new fiancée. From dance teacher to princess, who is Lily Smith? The fairy tale that conquered America's most coveted tycoon. "Oh my God," she murmured, flipping through the articles that dissected every aspect of her life. "Get dressed. I'm coming to get you. We need to talk." An hour later, they were in Dominic's office, surrounded by newspapers scattered on the table. Claudia had cancelled all morning appointments, and Dr. Robert was present with a somber expression. "The situation is getting out of control," said the lawyer. "Ryan hired Mario Silva, the most ruthless investigator in the city. He's digging up every detail of your lives. And what can he find?" asked Lily, trying to stay calm. "So far, nothing compromising," Dominic replied. But what?" she insisted. Dr. Roberts sighed heavily. "Silva found out about the payment for your grandmother's surgery. He's investigating the origin of the money, the dates, trying to establish a timeline that proves you only met recently." Lily's heart leapt. "And that's a problem. If he can prove that Dominic paid for the surgery before you were together, it could suggest that it was a payment for services rendered," Dr. Robert explained delicately. The implication hit Lily like a slap. She stood up abruptly, walking to the window. "They're going to say I'm an expensive prostitute. We're never going to let that happen," Dominic said with a controlled fury that silenced everyone. Claudia's phone rang, and she answered with her usual efficiency. "Mr. Pierce, it's Rick Holmes from Society magazine. He says he has important information about Miss Smith." Dominic signaled for her to transfer the call. When he answered, he put it on speakerphone. "Rick, what do you have?" "Dominic, you need to know you're being investigated. I have reliable sources saying that Ryan is preparing something big. Something about contracts, suspicious payments." Lily felt her blood run cold. "What kind of contracts?" Dominic asked, keeping his voice neutral. "I don't have details yet, but my source in Silva's office says they found documents. I'll try to find out more, but you should prepare yourselves. If what they're insinuating is true, it could destroy both your reputation and hers." When they hung up, the silence in the office was oppressive. "They know," Lily whispered. "Somehow, they know about the contract." Dominic slammed his fist on the desk, making it tremble. "Impossible. Only the 3 of us have access to the document." Dr. Robert looked pale. "Unless... Dominic, do you remember I asked my assistant to type the contract? She has limited access, but investigate." "Now," Dominic ordered. That afternoon, while Dr. Robert tracked down the source of the leak, Dominic and Lily were forced to attend the opening of an art gallery in Soho. It was an event they couldn't cancel without raising suspicions. The gallery swarmed with socialites, businessmen, and journalists. Lily smiled and waved, playing the role of the enamored fiancé, but she noticed the whispers, the speculative glances, the cameras that followed her incessantly. "Are you okay?" Dominic murmured in her ear during a break between greetings. "I feel like I'm in a zoo," she confessed. He slid his hand to her back, a protective gesture that had become natural. "Lily Smith." A female voice cut through the air. They turned to find Isabella Cortez, a socialite known for her sharp tongue and relationships with the press. "Isabella," Dominic greeted coldly. "Dominic, what a wonderful coincidence," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I was just talking to the girls about your new fiancé." The word was pronounced with a calculated hesitation that made Lily cringe. "It's a pleasure to meet you," Lily replied politely. "Oh, the pleasure is all mine, darling. You know, it's so inspiring to see stories of true love these days." Isabella made a dramatic pause. "Especially when they start in such unusual circumstances." Dominic stiffened. "What do you mean by that, Isabella?" "Oh, nothing much. Just that it's interesting how love can blossom in the most unexpected places. Hospitals, for example, or law offices late at night." Lily's blood ran cold. Isabella knew something. "I don't know what you're talking about," Dominic said dangerously low. "Of course not, darling." Isabella laughed, a crystalline and venomous sound. "Well, I must go." "It was a pleasure, Lily. I'm sure we'll see each other very soon. Maybe in some interviews." As she walked away, Lily was trembling. "She knows," she whispered. "She definitely knows." Dominic guided her to a more secluded area of the gallery. "Listen, no matter what happens, don't let her intimidate you. Isabella is a viper, but she doesn't have real proof. What if she does?" Before he could answer, his phone vibrated. It was Dr. Robert. "I found the source of the leak." His voice was grave. "My assistant was bribed. Ryan has copies of everything, Dominic. The contract, the payments, the clauses, everything." Lily's world seemed to crumble. Around them, the party continued, oblivious to the fact that their lives were being torn apart in real time. "How much time do we have?" Dominic asked, his voice controlled but deadly. "Hours, maybe a day." Ryan scheduled a press conference for tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon. "He's going to expose everything." Lily leaned against the wall, feeling nauseous. "It's over," she whispered. "My reputation, your company. It's over." Dominic hung up the phone and looked into her eyes. There was something different in his expression, a fierce determination she had never seen. "No," he said firmly. "We're not going to let them win. Dominic, they have proof. They have papers, contracts, but they don't have this." He leaned down and kissed her right there, in the middle of the gallery, in front of dozens of people and cameras. When they broke apart, Lily was breathless. "What are you doing?" "Changing the rules of the game," he said, his eyes burning with an intensity that made her shiver. "If they want a war, we'll give them a war." But even as he spoke confidently, both knew they were on the edge of the abyss. In less than 24 hours, their carefully constructed world of lies would be exposed to the world, and not even the love that was beginning to blossom between them would be enough to prevent the fall. The approaching storm promised to destroy everything in its path, and they were right in the center of it. The morning arrived with a torrential rain that lashed against the windows of Lily's apartment. She hadn't slept, spending the night pacing back and forth, rehearsing what she would say when the world knew the truth. Dominic had called 3 times, but she couldn't answer. Each ring of the phone was a reminder that in a few hours, her life would become a public spectacle. At 11 in the morning, Claudia appeared at her door with a somber expression. "Miss Smith, Mr. Pierce asked me to deliver this to you." She held out a sealed envelope and a credit card. "And he said to use the card for anything you need. There's also a car at your disposal." Lily opened the envelope with trembling hands. It was a handwritten letter with Dominic's elegant handwriting. Lily, no matter what happens today, I want you to know that these have been the best 2 months of my life. You showed me that it's possible to feel something real, even when it all started as a lie. I'm sorry I dragged you into this hell. You deserve so much more than I can offer, Dominic." The tears she had held back all night finally overflowed. There was something definitive about that letter, as if he were saying goodbye. At 2 o'clock sharp, Ryan Pierce occupied the podium of the Beverly Hills Hotel before an audience filled with journalists, photographers, and cameramen. Lily watched on television, huddled on the sofa of her apartment as her world crumbled live. "Members of the press," Ryan began, with a solemn expression of someone carrying the weight of the truth. "Today, I am here to expose a farce that stains the reputation of our family and deceives the American people." He raised a folder filled with documents. "I have here irrefutable proof that the engagement between my cousin Dominic Pierce and Miss Lily Smith is an elaborate charade, a cold and calculated business agreement." The camera flashes exploded as Ryan showed copies of the pages of the contract. Lily felt as if she were being stripped publicly, each clause exposed as evidence of her degradation. "The contract stipulates specific payments," Ryan continued, his voice laden with moral indignation. $500,000 for the fake engagement. Payment of her grandmother's medical expenses. Everything documented, everything calculated. A reporter raised his hand. "Mr. Pierce, are you suggesting that Miss Smith is a—" "I'm suggesting that my cousin, in desperation to fulfill an archaic testamentary clause, hired an actress to deceive our family and the company shareholders," Ryan replied with false compassion. "Miss Smith is just a victim of Dominic's excessive ambitions." Lily turned off the television, unable to bear any more. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, unknown numbers, probably people wanting her side of the story. She switched off the device and locked herself in the bedroom. 2 hours later, the doorbell rang insistently. She opened the door expecting to find Dominic, but was greeted by a barrage of flashes and microphones being thrust in her direction. "Miss Smith, is it true you were paid to feign love? How does it feel to be exposed as a fraud? Are you going to sue Dominic Pierce for damages?" Lily slammed the door shut, her heart racing. They had discovered her address. She was under siege in her own home. The landline rang and she answered, hoping it was Dominic. "Lily?" It was Eleanor's weak voice. "Grandma? How did you—" "I'm watching television, my darling. What's this story?" Lily closed her eyes, feeling her world completely crumble. Eleanor had found out via television that her grandson was a lie. "Grandma, I can explain. You lied to me." The elderly woman's voice was broken with disappointment. "All these months, you made me believe you had found true love, that you would finally be happy. I wanted you to get well. The surgery, the treatment. I would do anything to save you, at the cost of your dignity. Lily, what did I teach you? I'd rather die than live knowing you sold yourself for me." The line went dead, and Lily collapsed to the floor, sobbing. She had lost not only her reputation, but also the only person who truly mattered. That night, when the reporters finally dispersed, Dominic appeared at her door. He looked devastated, his suit rumpled, his hair disheveled, his eyes red with fatigue. "Lily, please let me explain." "Explain what?" she said through the slightly open door. "That I'm an expensive prostitute? That you bought me like an object? You know that's not true, do I?" She opened the door completely, revealing her face swollen from crying. "Then tell me, Dominic, at what point did you decide I was worth $500,000? When you saw me crying at the hospital? When you realized how desperate I was?" "Lily, it wasn't like that, wasn't it?" She laughed bitterly. "Because I just discovered something interesting. You know the detective your cousins hired? He contacted me today. Want to know what he told me?" Dominic paled. "That you investigated me long before the accident," she continued, her voice growing louder. "That you already knew about my grandmother, about my debts, about my desperation. The accident wasn't a coincidence, it was an opportunity. That's not, you chose me like a piece on a chessboard." She screamed, years of humiliation exploding at once. calculated exactly how much it would cost to buy me, to turn me into the perfect doll for your game. Lily, listen. No! She slammed the door in his face. It's over, Dominic. Your contract is fulfilled. You've lost the company anyway, so you don't owe me anything anymore. On the other side of the door, Dominic leaned against the wall, defeated. She was right. He had lost everything. The company his grandfather had built, the woman he had learned to love, the respect of all society. Ryan would take control in the morning, and he would become just another corporate scandal. Lily, he said softly, knowing she could hear him. I love you. I know I have no right, I know I screwed everything up, but I need you to know I truly love you. Silence. And I'm sorrier than you can imagine for having destroyed the only good thing I've ever had in my life. Inside the apartment, Lily slid down the door to the floor, sobbing silently. She loved him too, and that made everything even more painful. How could she love someone who had bought her? How could she trust feelings that were born from a lie? When the sound of Dominic's footsteps faded down the hallway, Lily knew it was the end. There was no turning back, no possible forgiveness. They had destroyed each other, and now there were only the pieces of two ruined lives and a love that should never have existed. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing the city but unable to cleanse the devastation that had befallen them. 3 days had passed since the scandal, and Lily hadn't left the apartment. The curtains remained closed, the phone disconnected, the newspapers piled up on the doorstep untouched. She survived eating only what was in the refrigerator, avoiding any contact with the outside world. On the morning of the 4th day, someone knocked on the door insistently. Lily ignored it, huddled on the sofa, but the knocking continued. "I know you're in there," shouted an unfamiliar female voice. "I need to talk to you about Dominic Pierce." Reluctantly, Lily dragged herself to the door and looked through the peephole. An elegant woman of about 50 was waiting in the hallway, alone. "Who are you?" Lily asked through the door. "My name is Carol Rodriguez. I was married to Dominic's grandfather's brother. I know the truth about that testamentary clause, and you need to hear what I have to say." Curiosity overcame apathy. Lily opened the door slowly. Carol entered and surveyed the darkened apartment with compassion. "Honey, you're looking terrible." "Thanks for the honesty," Lily murmured sarcastically. "Listen, I know you don't know me, but I've been following this whole situation in the papers. There are things you don't know, things that change everything." Lily sat down heavily on the sofa. "Nothing can change the fact that I was bought like a commodity. What if I told you that the testamentary clause is fake?" Lily's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Carol opened her purse and pulled out old documents. "Dominic's grandfather's real will doesn't have any clause about marriage. This was a fabrication by Ryan to pressure Dominic." Lily's hands trembled as she took the papers. "But how?" "Ryan forged a version of the will. Dominic never saw the original document, only the version that Ryan and his lawyer presented. My late husband was a junior partner in the company and had copies of the original documents." Lily studied the papers, trying to process the information. "Why would Ryan do this?" "Power, honey. He's always been jealous of Dominic. With this charade, he achieved 2 goals: force Dominic into a desperate situation, and when the scandal broke, justify his takeover of the company. Reality hit Lily like a punch. So Dominic, he didn't need to get married. He never did. But Ryan is clever. He knew that if Dominic discovered the truth, he could contest it. So he manipulated everything so that Dominic would destroy himself." Lily stood up abruptly, walking to the window. "But that doesn't change the fact that he investigated me, chose me as a target, doesn't it?" Carol asked softly. "Or did someone direct Dominic to you?" Lily turned around quickly. "What do you mean?" "Think, honey. What a coincidence that Dominic was driving on exactly that street at that moment. What a coincidence that you were desperate for money just when he needed a fiancée." Lily's heart started beating faster. "Are you insinuating that Ryan orchestrated your meeting from the beginning? He studied your situation, knew about your grandmother, about your struggles." Then he manipulated the circumstances so that Dominic would bump into you at the exact moment of your vulnerability. Lily sat down again, stunned. How do you know this? Carol hesitated. Because the detective Ryan hired is my son-in-law. He told me everything with remorse. Ryan didn't just investigate you afterward. He investigated you before, found the perfect situation, and then created the conditions for you to meet. The accident wasn't an accident. Ryan knew Dominic's routine, knew that he always left the office at that time, passing by that street. And he knew you would be running desperately from the hospital at that exact moment. Tears of anger began to well up in Lily's eyes. He manipulated us like puppets from the very first moment. And when he realized that you were developing real feelings, he accelerated the exposure to destroy both the relationship and Dominic's reputation. Lily wiped away the tears with growing determination. Where is Dominic now? At home, completely destroyed. He lost the company, his reputation, and he believes he's lost you forever. Ryan took control yesterday, and these documents, do they prove the forgery? They do? But we need more evidence. The detective is willing to testify, but we need solid documentation about how Ryan orchestrated your meeting. Lily stood up, a new energy coursing through her veins. What do we need to do? First, gather all the evidence. Second, expose Ryan publicly before he completely consolidates control of the company. And third, Carol smiled, you two need to stop punishing yourselves for having been victims of a cruel man's manipulation. Lily went to the bedroom and began to get dressed for the first time in days. How much time do we have? Ryan has scheduled a shareholders meeting for tomorrow afternoon. If he gets formal approval of the transition of power, it will be much harder to reverse it. So we have less than 30 hours. Yes. And Lily? Carol called her as she left the room. Dominic doesn't know any of this. He believes that he really hurt you, that he really manipulated you. He's destroying himself with guilt. Lily's heart clenched. During all these days, while she lamented being deceived, Dominic was torturing himself for crimes he hadn't committed. Are we going to him now? Not yet. First, we need irrefutable evidence. If we go to him only with suspicions, Ryan can destroy the remaining evidence. Lily nodded, understanding the strategy. What do we need to do first? Talk to Dr. Robert. If there's someone who can help us prove the forgery of the will, it's him. When they left the apartment, Lily felt the sun on her face for the first time in days. The battle was just beginning, but for the first time since the scandal, she had hope. Ryan had played a dirty game, manipulated their lives like pieces on a chessboard, destroyed the love that she and Dominic had found. But now she knew the truth, and she was ready to fight. Dr. Robert examined Carol's documents with growing disbelief in his office. It was almost midnight, and the city lights shone through the panoramic windows. My God, he murmured, comparing the papers with the copies he had in his files. How didn't I notice? The date of the signature, the witnesses. Everything was forged with impressive precision. Ryan is a lawyer too, Carol said grimly. He knew exactly how to make a convincing forgery. Lily, who had remained silent, finally spoke. Where is Dominic now? At home, probably drunk, Dr. Robert sighed. He hasn't answered my calls for 2 days. I think he's preparing to leave the country. We need him here tomorrow, Lily said with determination. He needs to know the truth before the meeting. Dr. Robert picked up the phone. I'm going to call some contacts in the press. If we're going to expose Ryan, we need to do it with maximum impact. 3 hours later, they had a plan. Rick Holmes from Society magazine had agreed to publish a special edition online at midnight. Other trusted journalists were alerted discreetly. Mario Silva, the detective hired by Ryan, had agreed to testify about the orchestrated manipulation. When the sun rose, Lily was at the door of Dominic's penthouse. She used the key he had given her during their engagement, finding him on the terrace, looking at the ocean, with a half-empty bottle of whiskey beside him. He was unrecognizable, unshaven, hair disheveled, eyes red and empty. I came to return this, she said, placing the key on the table. Dominic turned around slowly as if he were seeing a ghost. "Lily, how did you—" "We need to talk." "There's nothing to talk about," he said, his voice hoarse. "I destroyed your life. I destroyed mine. Ryan won. Ryan lied to both of us." Lily handed him the documents that Carol had brought. Dominic read them with growing astonishment, the color gradually returning to his face. "This means that there was never a testamentary clause, that the meeting between us was orchestrated, that we were manipulated from the very first moment." Dominic stood up abruptly, walking to the balustrade. "But that doesn't change what I did. I still investigated you, still offered you money, because you believed you had to. Because your cousin made you believe there was no choice." Lily approached him. "Dominic, you saved me. You saved my grandmother. And I fell in love with you for real." He turned to her, his eyes shining with a cautious hope. "Even after everything?" "Ah, especially after everything, because now I know that your feelings were real." Before she could answer, Lily's phone rang. It was Dr. Robert. "Lily, we need to go. The meeting has been moved up to 10 o'clock. Ryan found out we're investigating." An hour later, the hotel auditorium was packed with shareholders, journalists, and onlookers. Ryan occupied the stage with an expression of barely disguised triumph, surrounded by his lawyers. "Shareholders," he began, "as you all know, the recent scandals involving my cousin have made it impossible for him to remain in charge of the company. Ryan—" Dominic's voice cut through the air like a blade. All heads turned. Dominic entered the auditorium hand in hand with Lily, followed by Dr. Robert, Carol, and Mario Silva. "Cousin," Ryan forced a smile. "What a surprise. I thought you had quietly withdrawn." "I came to clarify some misunderstandings," Dominic said, walking onto the stage. "There's nothing to clarify. The meeting has already been called." "Based on falsified documents," Dr. Robert interrupted, handing a folder to the chairman of the meeting. A murmur ran through the audience. Ryan paled but maintained his composure. "I don't know what they're talking about. We're talking about forgery of a will," Lily said, taking the microphone. "About manipulation, blackmail, and the orchestration of a fake encounter." She told the whole story to the astonished audience. How Ryan had falsified the testamentary clause, investigated her life, created the conditions for the accident, all to destroy Dominic and take control of the company. Mario Silva went on stage and confirmed every detail, presenting evidence of how he had been instructed to investigate Lily even before she met Dominic. "You have no proof," Ryan said desperately, but his voice was failing. Carol stood up in the audience. "We have the original will," she announced, "and recordings of conversations where you admit the forgery to your accomplices." Ryan tried to run, but hotel security guards intercepted him. Cameras filmed everything, broadcasting live to the entire country. "Ryan Pierce," said the chairman of the meeting, "you are formally charged with fraud, forgery of documents, and corporate manipulation." As Ryan was led away in handcuffs, Dominic took the microphone. "Shareholders, I apologize for the scandal that my family has brought to this company, but I want to take this opportunity to clarify something very important." He turned to Lily, who was beside him on the stage. "What started as a business agreement became the most real thing in my life. Lily Smith is not a hired actress. She is the woman who taught me to love again." He knelt before her, pulling a ring from his pocket. Not the fake engagement ring they had used, but a simple and elegant solitaire. "Lily, I know I don't deserve a second chance after everything we've been through, but you made me want to be a better man, taught me that love is worth more than any corporate empire." Tears streamed down Lily's face. "Will you marry me? For real this time? For love, not for contracts or clauses or obligations?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." The auditorium exploded in applause as Dominic slid the ring on her finger and kissed her passionately. 6 months later, Lily was dancing in her own studio, no longer the cramped space downtown, but a modern and spacious dance complex in Beverly Hills, funded by the foundation she and Dominic had created together. Eleanor, completely recovered, taught classical ballet to the younger children, radiant with pride for her granddaughter. Dominic had restructured the company, making it more ethical and socially responsible. Ryan was serving his sentence for fraud, and the company thrived under new leadership. On the wall of Dominic's office, there was a framed photo, him and Lily on their real wedding day, surrounded by children from her social project, all genuinely smiling. "Are you sure you don't regret it?" Lily asked one night, nestled in his arms on the penthouse terrace.
Regret what?"
he murmured, kissing her hair. "Marrying a dance teacher without a silver spoon in her mouth." Dominic looked into her eyes, and she saw in them the same love she had discovered on that balcony months ago, but now purified by the truth. "Lily, you are my greatest wealth. You taught me that true love cannot be bought, contracted, or faked. It can only be chosen every day with a whole heart." As they kissed under the stars of Los Angeles, both knew they had found something that no contract could define and no lie could destroy, a love that had been born from the truth, grown in adversity, and become indestructible through sincerity. The fake fiancée had become the truest wife the world had ever known, and the cold tycoon had discovered that the greatest investment of his life was not in the financial markets, but in the heart of the woman who danced in his arms.